Well, it is a Monday edition. It is orange and blue today, and that means Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason talking about the Denver Broncos and the preseason performance, of course, against the New Orleans Saints there, Mason. We got a lot to get to with this game, including did fans see enough? Did we see enough from Bo Nix in that Broncos offense?
Well, I think Sean Payton wanted to keep Bo Nix in the offense in long enough until they got it right.
Yes.
Finally getting it right with that touchdown drive, although it's fair to wonder what would have happened if they hadn't gotten the benefit of that penalty there to keep that drive alive.
Right. Maybe that one to court doesn't connect in the end zone, something. I mean, you finish on a good one. That's for sure. You finish on that good touchdown to court, so you love to see it. But certainly I think fans maybe wanted to see a little bit more. But let's get into it, Mase, and your experiences down there in New Orleans and what you saw and what we saw from this Broncos offense as a whole in training camp, in the preseason. It's all over. We're here. We're getting into the regular season. You're on the road. Yeah, we got a lot to get into today.
I mean, you'd like to see dominance. You'd like to see consistent dominance. I think you weren't going to see it in practice just because of the quality of the defense that they were going against on an everyday basis. I think you would have liked to have seen smoother process in the games over the 6 possessions, and that's what you haven't seen so far.
Right.
And I think you saw glimpses. I think you saw Bo Nix look good beyond structure at times. He climbed the pocket. He had to operate under duress. He largely didn't look flustered under duress. The connection with Courtland Sutton appears to be on point. That's a positive.
Yep.
For the offense in general, at least the first team offense, the ground game hasn't been there just yet. But that, I think, that's something that's just going to probably take some time. And I think this is also where the integration of wide zone principles into the offense probably means this is going to very much be a work in progress for some time. And this is something that you probably just have to accept as part of playing the long game, that you're dealing with some short-term adjustment to what you hope is significant long-term results, that hopefully by the second half of the season, you're seeing this thing really pop. But as you put more of these principles in right now, you're going through a settling in period where it doesn't always look too elegant.
Yeah. And before we jump into more of the details, I want to pick your brain about Mason, your experience down there in New Orleans. The larger question I think we should start with is merely this. Should we look at the preseason differently now? I find myself as someone with 25 years of preseason tape at home that I've studied.
Which is insane.
I'm crazy. I'm nuts. But I love the preseason. It just seemed like with joint practices, the preseason is a little bit different kind of picture than we've normally gotten. Is that just me? Did you feel the same way? Should we look at preseason differently than we have in the past?
I think you have to. I mean, we're talking about 6 possessions here for the first team offense. I mean, that's basically a half of work. And against the 49ers, it wasn't even against their starters, it was against their backups. And then that creates something else where you're fighting against guys that, okay, they aren't as talented as the first team, but then those guys are doing something different. They're fighting for jobs, and sometimes they're going out there with a little different mindset, different set of priorities in terms of what they're trying to do when they're out there. If you're a first team offense, when you're going out on the field, you're talking about preparing for the regular season when you're out there in the preseason games. If you're second teamers out there, you're not focused on the regular season. You're focused on trying to make an impression and, hair on fire, trying to make that big play that catches the coach's eye. So it sort of affects kind of what you're seeing. And of course, I mean, you think back to that safety, and that was something in terms of a play call that was unusual, the safety in the 49ers game that you faced in terms of the type of blitz that you got there. So that's why I think probably you do get a little bit more from the joint practices. And then, so when you talk about the offense, okay, what did you take from the joint practices? I think the Arizona joint practice, you can take certainly some things that were promising, especially regarding Bo Nix. Certainly some things that maybe we are concerned about, the level of pressure with which he dealt in that practice. But the way Bo Nix handled the pressure is something by which you're encouraged. And if you're looking for a pattern that did reflect in the preseason games, that's something that you would see in the Saints game as well. Bo Nix was operating under duress, but was handling it quite well and still making plays despite that.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see from a young quarterback. As we move to that pressure talk, though, matter of time, preseason, we'll see how it shakes out. But are any concerns about the offensive line? You and I regularly talk about the pass block win rate, their run block win rate, how this offensive line is really good. And we still believe in that offensive line. And I can't say the word surprised, Mase, but it is a little something interesting that we saw this preseason. We saw Bo Nix under more pressure.
I'll be more concerned if I see it in the regular season. I think when you see what they did last year, I think they've earned a bit of slack. Obviously, last year's last year, this year is this year. But when you have the broader sample size of last year versus what you've seen so far this year, especially, again, 6 possessions, if we're talking about preseason game, full speed, game tempo, all that, you're talking about a half. I mean, the offensive line had a bad game against Seattle in week 1 as well last year, and they overcame that. So that's why I'm not there yet. There are a lot of people who are panicking. I mean, all I have to do is look at comments and look at responses on social media, and I know there are people that are panic. I'm not. I don't think it's wise to be at that point yet. So if you're seeing it 3 weeks into the season, then it's probably time to have a conversation. But I don't think that conversation is appropriate today. I think when you have a group of veteran starters, multi-year starters at 4 of the 5 spots, I think you kind of trust where that is and see where it goes. I mean, Luke Wattenberg, the other thing is we kind of know, let's say Luke Wattenberg, we know what he is. We know what his strengths are. We know what his weak points are. We know he's better in pass pro than in run blocking. But that's part of the equation here. How often have we said if you took Luke Wattenberg and Alex Forsythe and you took their strengths and put them together, I mean, you'd have a guy who is one of the top centers in the league, because Alex Forsythe is great at driving off the snap and run block and going downhill as a run blocker. But he's not the pass protector that Luke Wattenberg is. And if you have to choose between the two, the skill sets, which one are you going to choose? All day you're going to choose the pass pro guy over the run blocker guy in today's NFL. That's just sort of the way things work in what football is today.
Yeah, it's interesting you say 3 weeks, Mase, because I was going to say give him like a month.
Yeah.
Let's see this thing come together, and let's see this ground game come together, because that's one thing you mentioned earlier is like it's the preseason. We didn't get to see J.K. Dobbins. I didn't want to see J.K. Dobbins. I don't know if you disagree with that, but I was okay with him not participating in the preseason. He's a veteran. We got lots of film on him. We know he's great when he's healthy. But now it's time to show it. It's time to show it with RJ. We'll get to his pass pro in a little bit. But for me, with the rushing attack, I'm not upset that we didn't get to see it in the preseason, because I have confidence that JK will be that guy who we know who he is as soon as week 1.
Well, I think with J.K. Dobbins, you don't need to play pressure luck on him until you have to.
Right.
Because once you get out there in the regular season with his injury rate, you do have to play press your luck on him. And at some point, the odds say you're going to hit the whammy. I'd rather not run the risk of hitting the whammy in preseason. So that's why, to me, even though, yeah, he's new to the offense, he's new to the scheme, the risk there and the historical injury rate for him, I simply wouldn't have done that. I mean, to go to the defensive side, for an example, even though it probably would have been nice to see Dre Greenlaw work with Alex Singleton, to see them communicate together at full speed in game reps. Perhaps in retrospect, maybe it was the better call to not have Dre Greenlaw out there on Saturday night. Maybe the reward was not worth the risk of having him out there.
Right. Weighing risk rewards.
Yeah.
Risk rewards. I sound like Elmer Fudd. Regularly go Looney Tunes at times.
Hunting Wabbit.
Risk reward and Wabbit season.
Risk reward.
Yes. The Broncos are looking for RJ Harvey to do more as well. Now, we're not going to break down the rest of the league, but just know guys like Travion Henderson, guys like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, these young backs. Ollie Gordon, I think, is doing good things with the Dolphins. Like, there's some young backs really kind of, getting those viral tweets going. And we didn't necessarily see that from RJ Harvey. I think you and I are both rather sedate on this of like, hey, get to the regular season. And I've given him to week 6. Week 6, I want to see RJ Harvey really start to take off. But how would you judge his preseason performance, Mason? You with the benefit of seeing the entirety of his offseason work, his training camp work, and his preseason work.
He does have the biggest burst of any running back in the room. I think that's obvious. So the ceiling for him is the highest. It was interesting to hear Joe Lombardi talk about the positives of what he can do bouncing to the outside rather than focus on the downsides of him bouncing it to the outside. So kind of turning that notion into an attribute rather than a detriment. It's to say, okay, well, this can kind of stretch the defense out a little bit. Right now, though, I mean, the biggest spark we've seen, it was in that preseason game against the Cardinals, and of course that was against their backups. We didn't see starters in that game, and there have been some splash runs in practice as well. So it's just wait and see. Just wait and see.
Yeah, just wait and see. I think that's the best approach when it comes to that young running back, and then just kind of wait and see with this backfield. Maybe that's not what fans want to hear. It's just kind of what we're dealing with right now. About halfway through, before we get to more of Mason's observations from that Saints game, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode of Orange and Blue Today is presented by Ramos Law, the official injury law firm partner of the Denver Broncos. Ramos Law was founded by Dr. Joseph Ramos, an attorney and ER doctor, to provide exceptional care to those injured in accidents. With a unique understanding of both medicine and law, the Ramos Law team is built to fight for you every step of the way. Experience the Ramos Law difference. Contact them today at ramoslaw.com.
Okay, Mace, let's talk briefly about Pat Bryant, who could have had a better day against the Saints. We certainly know from the previous contest where he and Troy Franklin kind of tear it up. They're the talk. The team trades Devon Vele. I've said it on the local airwaves. I don't want to hear anyone say that Bryant had a bad game and they should have never traded Vele. Hopefully don't see much of that in the comments section, but drop y'all's comments down below. Mace, what can you say about Pat Bryant? Again, having seen all of his camp and all of his preseason, including what many would classify as a disappointing finale against the Saints.
I mean, it was a good camp and a bad day. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
He I mean, they've Pro Football Focus, officially gave him 1 drop. I mean, good camp, bad day. I don't think there's any. I don't think you need to get deep. I don't think there's any reason to get deeper than that, because I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. And we'll continue to watch that young man grow. And with guys in front of him on the depth chart like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, he might have to wait for some of his opportunities. Again, and I said this last week, I don't want people to look at Vele's numbers at the end of the year and Pat Bryant's numbers at the end of the year and compare and contrast. 2 different situations.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you have the presence of Troy Franklin here as well. That was the thing. I mean, Vele probably moves up at least 1 notch in New Orleans, if not 2, in terms of how often he's going to be used. Here with the Broncos, you're talking about him because of Marvin Mims Jr., because of Troy Franklin. Because remember, by the second half of the season, from week 10 onward, once Marvin Mims Jr. started being inserted in the backfield to get him the ball intentionally as a ball carrier, as a runner, they started doing more with him as a pass catcher. Because from week 10 onward, the Bronco wide receiver, who was second behind Cortland Sutton in targets and receptions, from week 10 onward, it was Marvin Mims Jr., not Devon Vele. So effectively, by then, Vele had become wide receiver 3 in terms of use. And with what we've seen from Troy Franklin emerging, that may have already pushed Vele to wide receiver 4. So that's the type of workload he was looking at having if he had stayed here. So that's, I think, something that I think everyone's got to consider in terms of what would Devon Vele have done if the Broncos had kept him around. They'd kept him around. Well, he would have been number 4 in terms of use in all likelihood. He goes to the Saints, he might end up being 2. And so, right. So the numbers are not going to be analogous to what they would have been in Denver in all likelihood, unless you had like 2 guys getting hurt. Okay. So that is something to consider here in any discussion that ends up happening.
It is Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason. And Mace, before we wrap up today's somewhat abbreviated show, you're traveling. We got a lot of stuff going on.
You can hear it and all the announcements going crazy here right now.
Exactly. We're waiting for more cuts for the Broncos. We're definitely going to go through this roster with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to have you all set. We've got a tracker at denversports.com that people can look at. So we will be reacting when that roster is set.
Yeah. Do you think it's significant that we already know 2 undrafted receivers who they're parting ways with, Jerwan Newton and Joaquin Davis? At the time we record this show, we already know they're both going to be waived.
I think with Davis, it's maybe let him get out in front of it, because there's going to be a flurry around the league, and guys are going to get lost in the shovel. And maybe that's the same with Newton there as well, of like, hey, let's get you out there early in case someone really liked you and maybe they could pick you up.
What's interesting is Davis was on the wire Monday. Newton was not on the wire Monday. It's been reported. Davis was actually on the wire Monday, not because some moves actually hit the wire Monday and then the rest of them hit the wire Tuesday. Davis was one of the names on the wire Monday, hitting a day early.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, along with a handful of others.
Yeah. See if someone wants to pick him up and then perhaps bring him back. I know.
Does that mean you think Davis is not as held in the same esteem by the Broncos, perhaps, as maybe we thought?
Perhaps. Yeah. We'll see. Again, we'll have a complete roster breakdown. But to kind of go back to Saturday and your thoughts from New Orleans, any final thoughts defensively? Q Robinson, anybody you'd like to talk about here before we call it a day?
Both Q Robinson and Savion Jones. I mean, they had good camps. They capped it with nice games on Saturday. So I think the interesting thing there with Savion Jones, I think the question is now, has he done enough to be defensive lineman 5 and get a jersey nudging past whoever ends up sticking Jordan Jackson, Eni Awazarike, or both. If they keep 60 linemen, one of them is going to be gone because Savion Jones is making the team. Has Savion worked his way up to D lineman 5, or is he still going to be? Is he going to be D lineman 6 and be inactive? But he's had a great camp, so that's something that is something that you may have to consider here. And Q Robinson, great game, great camp. I mean, Broncos 5 deep at edge. I mean, does that make Dondrea Tillman a trade candidate, perhaps, because of how Q Robinson has done? I mean, maybe that's a surprise type move that could be coming into play, because you typically only have 4 edges active on game day, and Q's going to have a role on special teams. So, I mean, you could make room for 5 active on game day, but that's something, if you're looking for a surprise, that's the type of thing. It could be a surprise.
Yeah, a lot of roster gymnastics to go on in basically the next 24 hours. We break it down for you all, denversports.com and Orange Blue Today. Mase, before we let you get back to your travels, how can folks help us out here on our handy dandy YouTube channel?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss a vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mase Denver. I'm at Cecil saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?